Since then, 20 years, I've never taken a photo. So.
Good evening. Is that coming through now? Oh yes, it is now. Good evening everybody and welcome to tonight's Trans Forum, and congratulations to those of you who braved the weather and got through the storms and the puddles and the floods to get here. Thank you very much for coming. Hello to those of you at home watching in perhaps slightly calmer conditions. Big welcome tonight to our panel. So we've got Stevie, Tim Williams and Ed Waldron, and Nathan Cooper will be managing the evening, facilitating your questions. We have quite a few sent in advance, but there will be opportunity for those of you here to ask questions as well. I just want to do a couple of thank yous. First of all, Michael Doyle and Stanco, thank you very much for facilitating this for us this evening. We really appreciate that. If you want to show your appreciation, buy another drink at the bar. Just one point on practicalities here as well. If you haven't already registered your car and you've got a car here in the car park, there's a QR code just by the door there. Go and get it registered. Thank you to Oxbox and my OSB colleagues for their support. We're not charging for this evening, but if you want to make a donation, there is a donation box just over by Rosie. That will be going to the Joey Beecham Foundation, and Oxbox are managing that this evening. And lastly, thank you to you, the fans, for coming tonight and for submitting your questions. This evening is for fans. So I'll hand over to Nathan, and off we go.
Yeah, thanks, Jenny. Good evening, one and all. Just to reiterate, I think we all know it is a football forum tonight, and the questions are about the team and off the field matters relating to football. But I think, Tim, if we can just start perhaps a 2-minute overview of where we are as a football club in terms of on and off the field, please.
Of course. And I just echo what Ginny just said. Thank you to everybody for being here tonight. It's good to see you all. It's been a while, so it's been a fairly uneventful time since last time. I'm not sure what happened, but we seem to have done something. As Nathan just said, this is really about football. But before I pass on to Stevie and Ed, joking apart, it's been an exceptionally busy summer, both on the pitch, off the pitch. Underwater, over the water. It's been exceptionally busy for everybody, and I think the entire club has really pulled together to work very hard to deliver an amazing result in terms of what we've done with the stadium in such a short space of time. Also, an awful lot of work that we've done out of sight of the training ground, and that continues. And there is an enormous team of people doing an incredibly hard job to make that happen. I think it's been a brilliant transfer window. I think Ed and the team should be exceptionally proud of the work that they did. And Ed will talk a lot more about that, but an incredible window. Record transfer fee to Surrey MLA. Then I think 15 players brought in. 16 players brought in, which is an enormous amount of work, and took a very, very well earned break in September. Record season tickets. We've got just over 7,000 season tickets, which I've got to be honest with you, and I know there are a few comments regarding going off sale. It took us by surprise. It genuinely did. We were monitoring to decide at what point we should and go, we have to stop, and then suddenly there was an absolute burst, and we've got to be able to sell all the tickets here, so we have to stop. But, you know, a huge effort there, but also I think sensible prices, which is very important to us as a club. We had a record retail month in September. We launched 3 of our shirts incredibly successfully, and we sold the most retail revenues that we've ever made in September of this year. I think a lot of that was driven by basically a beautiful second shirt and an even more beautiful third shirt with the traditional yellow shirt. I'm also very pleased to announce, we were pleased to announce just before the first game, a superb new sponsor in Baxter. That was the result of an enormous amount of hard work on the part of our investment and commercial team. That deal had been bubbling under for months and months, and we got it over the line just in time. We've signed another really important deal with a company based in Singapore called Rocktree, which you will see on the back of our shorts, and I think some of our anthem jackets as well. And so, as we kind of move forward building on the sponsorship base, that's something that's also a continuing piece of work for us. And the work continues. You know, we've not only improved the team off the pitch, we've upskilled the sporting area. Mainly the 2 people sat either side of me tonight to recognise the contribution that they give to the club, and also the immense skill that they bring to the club and their roles, and that is hugely deserved in terms of how Stevie has taken up the mantle of the academy, the women's team, girls and boys team, and therefore thoroughly deserving the job of head of football development. And you know, again, we've had to look at the transfer window and the contribution that he's made over the past few years, and more, you know, richly deserves the title of head of football operations for the men's first team. So I would actually like, before we do anything, to give them a round of applause for the work that they've done. As you all know, we said goodbye to Amy Cranston at the end of August. We have hired somebody who will be fulfilling that role from probably the middle of October. I don't know whether to announce the name, so I'm not going to do that this evening, because it will be breaking confidence and also breaking the confidence of the club that he's coming from. But it's a really excellent appointment, and you know, he's got big shoes to fill, and I think he will fill them. That's a clue who's a guy. Big shoes to fill, and I think he will fill them accurately. Meanwhile, we've had some great support from guys on the ground to take over from where Amy left off on the 31st of August. And finally, before I pass on to these guys, there's somebody in this room who is richly deserving of a new job title this year after having been with the club for 40 odd years. And I'd like to just say a huge congratulations to Peter Rhodes-Brown, our new club ambassador.
You've got more questions to come, don't worry about that. Stevie and Ed, do you want to just give us a quick overview of what the new job is, the titles, and how they differ from your previous role at the football club? Stevie, go on.
So continuing looking after the academy, the pathway on the boys' side, from the pre-academy, the 6-7-year-old, all the way through to the men's first team, and hoping to try and push as many boys on that pathway as possible. So continuing doing that, taking on the girls' pathway as well as the women's senior team, and working closely with Gemma Simmons and Sam Rose on bringing them closer as we possibly can. I think there's a few questions will come as the evening goes on around the women's setup and what we're doing with it. And then a lot of the training ground, as most of you know, it ended up under about 3-4 feet of water, but it gave us an opportunity to look at training ground development as well. So between myself and Ed, we're looking at the sort of holistic approach to what the training ground potentially could look like over the next 3, 4, 5 years. With the boys' academy as well, we are currently a Category 3 academy. what do we need to do to the training ground to potentially move that to a category 2 academy as well, with a 3G pitch and things along those lines. So some really exciting stuff going on behind the scenes, and yeah, just picking up bits of bobs as we go along.
Yeah, so I think for me, I guess the kind of previous role head of recruitment maybe wasn't a fair reflection of what the role actually is, and that, you know, that went for me, and it probably was the same for Mark Thomas as well, where, you know, it's a bit of an all-encompassing role. So I think it's more of a reflection of what, you know, the day-to-day actually looks like, but then it's also to provide a framework for the first team, and, you know, going up a level, the demands on staff, the demands on players have increased massively. So it's providing that framework and that support for Des, for the staff, for the players, to basically help us perform and you know, help us keep the level and hopefully sustain ourselves at the level. So yeah, it's a combination of those things, and like Stevie says, working closely to bring the whole unit closer together, whether that's men's first team, women's section, academy, bring all three aspects closer together.
So Tim, does that mean there's no need to replace the roles that were being done before by the guys?
There absolutely is, and actually that's a conversation I had only with Ed this afternoon. And one of the clear points here is to make sure that as we raise the profile and promote people within, that we ensure that we've got adequate backfill and sufficient people who can, you know, can be there to effectively do the jobs that Ed and Steve used to do, so that they're not dragged into, you know, doing the jobs that they used to do. And that's something that's really important as we develop through. We are still looking at staff structures. You know, we've got a lot of people working exceptionally hard, but a lot of that rises to the top. That needs to change. The other thing that I think that is probably an interesting factor about Stevie and Ed's roles is that we have a senior leadership team, the guys who effectively run the club. Stevie and Ed are an intrinsic part of that senior leadership team, and that benefits us in many ways. But what it means is that rather than me and everybody having to speak to individuals within the sporting side, effectively Ed and Stevie are the kind of people who I go to first, and any issues that there are on the sporting side will filter through Ed and Stevie, so that the three of us can actually act properly rather than kind of back things away and play whack-a-mole all the time. So that's a really important part of how we do that.
I think this leads into a question that Matt sent through, actually, talking about the club. Is it a better place to deal with situations like we saw last year? A manager leaves, takes the backroom staff. What do we do about promoting within and keeping that going? Is that the club in a better place? That's to protect it in the future.
Yeah, that's absolutely the intention. I'll let Ed kind of go on and speak a little bit more about that. But that's absolutely the intention, that what we want to avoid going forward is that level of volatility when, for a variety of reasons, a manager goes and then ends up taking, you know, half a dozen people with him. And then we go into a process where we've got to recruit half a dozen people to replace the half a dozen people who've gone. We want to make sure that there are a core of people who are actually kind of what we call quote-unquote club employees, who stay with the club, who have that enduring benefit with the club and understand and know the club going forward. And Ed, you're going to add on to that?
Yeah, I think that losing your head coach, it's never an easy thing to deal with, right? Whether you are, whether you're Man City, whether you're Oxford, it's not an easy thing to deal with. But like I say, the changes and the infrastructure that we're bringing into the club, hopefully, like I say, gives you the best opportunity you can to manage that situation and get through it with as little disruption to the players and to the club as possible. But yeah, so like Tim said, a big focus on actually having club employees and you know, of course, managers gonna want to have 1 or 2 people that they trust and they know what to expect. But the core of the people in the staff to be club employees that, you know, if the head coach leaves and they remain and they stay as part of the club.
You, of course, you mentioned you were Mark Thomas before the big club. Presumably you have people around you now, of course, scouting network. What happens when someone like yourself leaves the club? You've got a vast number of contacts. The person who's also involved in that contact list. How does it sort of come together?
Yeah, of course. I mean, and this sounds quite an example, really. I can't tell you how many new agents that myself and Finn, who works really closely with me, you know, the European markets opened up completely, and you know, people I've never spoken to before suddenly would be, you know, your best friend because you're in the championship. So, you know, it's about sharing that workload and making sure that, you know, part of my role is to make sure that Finn's ready, that, you know, there will be a time naturally when I leave that Finn's ready to step up, and equally like Tim said, if we can look at, you know, increasing the headcount in the department, so then, you know, that we are prepared. And that's, it's not just for me, that's the same for everybody. You know, succession planning is a massive part of football. And if you take your eye off it, that's when you find yourself involved.
I did see it said a few times in the summer, people talked about recruitment and said, well, hang on, Des has only managed abroad, Ed's only been in the role at Oxford for a short space of time. Have they got the contacts around the world of football? Do you find that a little bit disrespectful, a bit annoying?
People are tied to their things, right? I think, see, I've had the exposure of working in Europe as well, which is a completely different market, and, you know, the French market is a lot easier to access than, it's easier to access players in the French market than it is in England with the Brexit rules, etc. But that's a big part of my role, that's a big part of recruitment, it's a big part of the gaff as well. You know that in this game, the network is so key, so it's something that we work on every day to improve, and every transfer window make sure that we know a few more people than we did in the last one. So, yeah.
And you have, of course, people like Deborah Zackley, Craig Shaw, the coaching staff, who also provide that. Sometimes you can go to them for that in or that, can you speak to so-and-so about
Exactly.
so-and-so?
And that was a big thing for me. I think Tim couldn't kind of back this up. When I took the role, knowing that I'm not experienced being a head of recruitment before, it was surround myself with experienced people. So we hired a guy called David Bowman, who'd been director of football at Ipswich, who is effectively our quite chief scout. Who knows pretty much everyone in the game. He's sat in this seat. He's dealt with agents, he's done deals, class experienced individual. So somebody that I can call upon to ask for advice, or I need to find a number. People around us, and like you say, the likes of Shorty that have had longevity in the game. Faz, who's been in the game 60 years now. In that period of time, you build up a good knowledge base and a good contact group. So they're really invaluable to the club and to me personally.
Anyone who jump into this on these questions, you've got a question that follows up, by all means raise your hand. We'll come to questions before all ages as well. We're going to jump between the guys as we go through the evening. We'll come back to recruitment in a second. But Steve, what about, you talk about recruitment, getting the best players in, but your role is obviously bringing people through. Give us a bit more on what we were talking about, particularly in terms of the academy, and also the inside, I guess, that progression in general, how that's going to play out with United, what those aims are.
Yeah, I mean, I think when we look at the whole club strategy, we need to. You've seen it for years at Oxford now that we've signed young players. They've came in, they've done well, they've moved on. We've seen players coming through the academy. We've got Shannon Baptiste, we've now got Tyler Waldron. So what we've got at the football club is a really good conveyor belt of a sort of player trading model where young players either get developed through the club and go on to play a certain amount of games to move on. Or you get the likes of a Cameron Bragg who came in as a young player and actually has longevity within the first team. And then you've got the younger players that we're trying to develop to booster the sort of squad, but also then become key parts. And I think what Tyler's done over the last sort of 18 months has really made himself really irreplaceable with the performances he's had and what he's done coming through. So my job is to make sure who's the next Tyler Waldron and who's the next one after that, and who's the next one after that. And it's a long-term project. We've got a few young boys who we're really excited about that have come into the building full time over the last sort of six weeks, just 16, 17 years old. But underneath that, we've got another group of boys at 15, 14, 13 that we're excited about. And one of the key things that nobody does see and we don't really like to highlight it too much is the amount of Premier League clubs that come chapping on the door, asking about these young players and trying to take them away from Oxford United at a very young age. And part of the job we've got is making sure that the strategy we have in place secures these players to stay at Oxford, because since I've come in nearly 2 years now, we want Oxford players playing for Oxford United, and that's a big thing that we're trying to do. And one of the key strategies around what the whole player development is securing these players, and being in the Championship allows us to give that extra bit of focus on that as well. One of the other key things is with the girls and women's pathway is we've changed from the development team to the under-18s. Because in the name development team, I think they won the treble. It was just ridiculous. So it's about developing. So you want to lose games. You want to test the girls. You want them to essentially want them to progress to the senior women's team. So instead of having a group of maybe 19, 20, 21-year-olds, we've now made it 16, 17-year-olds playing in an under-18s. And already we've seen, well, we've got Cecily who's played nearly 50 games at senior level and has interest from a WSL club. And we've got another couple as well just underneath. So across the whole, it's about really looking at that player development model and the training model that we put in place to make sure that we have that sort of conveyor belt of young talent coming through.
There's a question actually, since I started, a question for you actually about the 21 score. Do you want to go there now?
Yeah, I was going to ask that.
Yeah, I was going to say, follows on to what you were just saying from the men's point of view. It's a question from Sarge, who's asked about no 21 score for the men's side of things. Why not? And doesn't that help fitness for players with injured going forward? And off the back of that, I think on the Dog podcast this week, very much with Des Buckingham and Jerome alluded to the 21 league coming up for Oxford United. Can you sort of talk us through why not another league?
Yeah. So because we're a category 3, there is no official under-21s league, under-23s league. When a category 1 or category 2 academy have to go into the Premier League 1 or Premier League 2, which is essentially the under-21s league, you don't get access to that as a category 3. So what we've done is we've joined an unofficial for the first time this year. We've joined an unofficial under-21s league where we played Luton actually on Tuesday in that league, and it was a brilliant game. We've played Bromley a few weeks back in it as well. So we played down on Bromley's main pitch, and we had a really young team. So we had mostly 16, 17, 18-year-olds playing. But when we played against Luton on Tuesday, the manager and the first team squad wanted to use that for the minutes for the first team players. So we had a really strong team out and played against a really strong Luton team. And it's a brilliant gap for us to get the likes of Aidan Elliott-Wheeler, George Franklin and players like that to play alongside the senior boys that maybe need an extra few minutes. So yeah, we've acknowledged that there was that bit of a gap. We've done something about it this year, but we'll probably have the best part of 10 to 15 games in that space. They'll have a real mixture of 16-year-olds all the way through to senior pros playing on it.
Sarge, you want to back that up?
Yeah. Will we be able to come along and watch?
Yeah, it's so we're actually we're playing Chelmsford at Tame. I'm going to test myself. I think it's the 8th of October, so a couple of weeks' time. It'll be a young team playing in that. But yeah, we can put them up on social media when a little training ground is a little bit more difficult just with the stewarding of things. But when we've got Tame, we've got the venue there for those types of games. Yeah, absolutely.
Just going back to you alluded to the threat of Premier League coming in and nicking our players effectively. I think there's something called elite player performance or something. How does that work, and is that a real threat to us? And to follow up on that, I believe Reading's academy has recently closed. No, it hasn't closed.
No. No, Reading still have a Category 1 academy. Obviously, with all the financial troubles they've got going on, that's something for them. But no, they've very much got their academy still in place. The EPPP is what came in 2012 for all academies across England, and it's basically been the central point for the sort of poster boys for that, Reece James and Phil Foden and players like that, you know, basically making up the English national team that as a Scotsman, I'm absolutely gutted that England haven't quite won anything yet, but it's what it's done is it's changed the landscape in youth football in England, and it's absolutely brilliant. It's what the compensation that you get for young players, it protects you, but it only protects you to a certain point. what the EPPP ruling does is it gives us the opportunity to basically speak with clubs, so we can't just come in and nick the players and take them. There's got to be a real process that gets a board that it goes through, that they speak to us, and there's a real rigorous process. It's not they turn up one Saturday afternoon side thing. We like a couple of those boys and we'll take them on trial. It's a real sort of 2, 3, 4 month process of discussions back and forth. Is it the right thing for the player to be doing that? Is it the right thing for the club to be allowing a player, of talent to be able to go? And that's what the EPPP does. It's really protected the football clubs at the lower level, especially. But Premier League clubs being Premier League clubs will always try that.
And just a follow-up question, if I may. You're saying about your ambition, the club has ambitions to develop the academy to level 2, I think you said. What sort of steps does that involve to get to there, and what's the sort of timeline idea?
So we're actually going through the process now. Tim signed my change of category document just about an hour ago, so I'm delighted with that. What essentially is, it's across lots of different areas. It's against the staffing you have, it's against the safety operate. Safety operate is huge within academy football, to make sure that all the processes are followed, to make sure the players, the parents and the staff are all in a safe working environment. And we get audited every single year from, it's called the PJAC, which is basically a board that's been put together by the Premier League to make sure that all clubs adhere to all the youth development rules. And when we look at changing category, the main thing is facilities. What facilities we've got on the training grounds, how we operate. How do we comply with the different processes that we have to have in place? So we have to have a framework around coaching, we have to have a framework around staff and player development. There's lots of different areas. We've got to have certain staff in positions, a certain number of full-time staff. And then that goes to the PJAC board for a decision on whether we can move up to the next category.
There is also, just to add to that, there is an element of capital investment required for a Cat 2 academy. Steve's really been a little bit modest there. I actually think we're probably not a million miles off from being a Cat 2 academy, except for the one piece of infrastructure you need in Cat 2, which is a full-size 3G pitch and an inside dome. We actually had the Football League visitors today as part of their regular reviews in advance of the PFM ruling that Stevie mentioned, and I had a very short meeting with him, and he could not speak more highly of the academy setup that we have at the moment. I think Stevie's been genuinely honest there. It's from the point of view of the safeguarding, which is absolutely top of everybody's list on this for obvious reasons. But also the infrastructure, the pictures, the way we operate is genuinely in really good shape. We're just missing the 3G picture to go.
So I keep asking Tim for £1 million, but keeps getting dead.
We're going to come back to that in a second. Just to jump in slightly, just fine. But just jump back to the 21 team, just the final point question that came in was, is there a risk with that? Of the under-18 players being overused sometimes? If the first team players aren't available because it clashes, or the manager doesn't want to use any players in that fixture, we've already got the younger games at the weekends. Is there a risk in that with the smaller squad?
Nathan, you know my take on how many games footballers play, and they can't play enough. So
yeah, but you're old-fashioned.
No, it's all monitored. We've got teams of sports science and medical that are brilliant at the football club, and it's all monitored. The loading of each player across training. We've got under 15 floodlit games, we've got under 17 floodlit games, we've got under 19 leagues, under 21 leagues, and we've got a squad of players that we use across that. We're not fleecing the same 11 boys in every game. We've got a full squad of probably between 15 and 21 really. We've got probably the best part of 30 to 40 players that we can choose from all these games. So all of that's really monitored really well across that, and for me it's about testing the boys' resilience and pushing them as much as we possibly can without obviously going over the line.
Under 21, under 23 games, invaluable for you, I know, when you go out watching games all the time. When you look at sort of players that you've attracted recently, the younger Premier League players who come to Oxford United, those games are invaluable to you, aren't they?
Definitely, yeah. And I think just to add to Stevie's point, obviously going up a division, we've dropped the competition, which without being disrespectful, I'm sure we'll delight about, because it tends to be very late. So obviously, naturally, you know, there's less games for the first team. We've spoken about it, spoke about yesterday, that the games that we are facing in the league are a lot more intense, but you know, we do have players in the minutes, and I think the games program for the like the under-21s, as Stevie said, it's really invaluable, and it gives the lads an opportunity to play games and showcase themselves. The ones that may not have had as much opportunity to do that in the league or in the Carabao Cup as such so far. So yeah, it's huge.
So you've got your £1 million from Tim, and you're watching these games. You've also got your rival players as well. How hard is it, and what's the process in terms of balancing out where you put the budget? Because obviously you need a squad, not just £1 million player.
Yeah, no, of course, and it's important to say our budget, you know, at the start of the summer was more than £1 million. We obviously spent more than just one transfer fee on the player. So I think it's a lot of planning. It's a never-ending process, really, where you're constantly assessing the squad, assessing kind of situations, whether that be contract, injury, your current players, and then ultimately, you know, understanding the market. So you know that, inside central midfielders, we knew this summer there was quite a lot to choose from, and quite a lot to choose from on permanence. Whereas we knew, you know, centre forwards are always it's very, very competitive, and there's very few that, you know, teams like us feel like can affect our team and make us better. So, you know, it's a case of planning where you're going to put the money, but it's a combination of, like I say, understanding the market, understanding your team and what your needs are.
Can you come to just grab a second, so one more question just on that process first of all. How does that work? If you spot a player that Des doesn't fancy, or vice versa, at what point Tim, who's involved? Who has the final say?
Yeah, so myself and Des and my team and the coaches, we all work very closely on it. So, as I say, it's a never-ending process, really. It's not like we get to the transfer window and then we go, okay, right, let's sign some players. It's all year round. You know, the manager goes to games. I know last week he was up in Manchester on a Tuesday night watching games. When we were in the next day as well, to be fair. So it's a never-ending process. I think the answer on, I spoke about this on the dub, but the final say argument, ultimately Grant has the final say. He's the chairman. We have everything goes to him to sign. He has to approve every transfer that we make. In terms of, you know, if there's adamant he doesn't want a player, we don't sign him. There's no point signing a player that the manager doesn't want, because he's just not going to play him. So obviously we discuss things, and you know, I'll put across an argument, Des will put across an argument, the coach is the same, and normally we come to that conclusion together, and we come to that decision together to then present to Tim and Grant, you know, with this is what we want to do. So yeah, we're very aligned on it, we work very closely on it, and hopefully it's bringing positive results.
So, some transfers?
It was actually on, well, when you were still talking about the under-21s, I had my hand up about 3 times.
Apologies.
Youngsters who've been loaned out to non-league sides, can they be recalled to play the Oxford United way?
So when you put a player out to the National League, any non-league, you can recall at any point. You can put them out loan at any point to National League in one league, and you can also get the recall. The Oxford United way, like what you're looking for in a loan is sort of 2 things. Yes, the style of play, of course. Are they going to be absolutely completely aligned with what Des and the team are doing? Probably not, because no team is exactly the same. But can we look at the style of play that the team's playing? Can we look at the type of pitches that the players will be playing on? You know, we're not going to send them to a mud bath when it's punt and chip football and they're looking for that. That's just not going to happen. So we do our due diligence on where we're sending them into the facility as well. But the other side is the type of manager you're sending them to. It's got to be a manager who is looking at developing football players. It's not somebody that wants to just bring a player in, stick them in for 30 minutes, and then not play them for the next 4 weeks. There's got to be a plan behind every loan, and there's got to make sure that each player that goes out. So the likes of Aidan went out to Oxford City, and it wasn't working. Not really any one kind of fault on that. It was more just at that time, I don't think they've expected to start the season where they have, and they've had a bit of a change in strategy. We pull them back, but round a different look.
Just a quick question. Ed's obviously head of men's recruitment, so how do you recruit for the academy and the women's? Do the parents come to you and say, my boy wants to play, or how does it work for the academy and the women's for you to recruit them?
Yeah, I mean, we get a lot of parents coming and saying, my boy's the best player in Oxfordshire. But no, we've got a full recruitment team as well. To be fair, Jefferson, who heads up the academy recruitment, speaks with Ed and makes sure that the strategy on that is similar to what's being done across the club. Then we're recruiting at all ages. We've got pre-academy, we've got kids that train a couple of times a week at 7, 8 years old that come in the whole way through the pathway. Again, thinking about Aidan and George Franklin that came through, they joined the club at 9. And then you've got players like Laurie Griffiths who joined the club at 13, 14. And so the whole way through, we're recruiting players non-stop throughout the season, all different age groups. We've got scouts all around all the leagues, and we make the approach to the players. Like I said, we do get players and we get agents, and we get all different making phone calls and telling us how wonderful their players are. And look, we do have a look, but more often than not, it's us going out to find the players.
Go back to Flora just a second, just on follow up to that, for you, Evan. Stevie's talked about people coming to them, and we've talked about loans going out. Loans coming in when someone offers you a player. Does that often come with stipulations, restrictions? How off-putting or otherwise can that be for you?
No, I think Premier League clubs, top championship clubs, wherever these players are coming from, they just want the players to be given an opportunity. I think there's a clear awareness that the player isn't performing and isn't playing well, and no one deserves to play. No one has the right to start over others. You have to earn your place wherever you are, whoever you are. I think a big part of the loans process is actually we'll present to the club and say, this is what we are as a football club. This is the journey we're on. This is how we play. This is how we see your player fitting within that, and we think it's a good fit for these reasons. So it's kind of two ways. Generally speaking, I prefer to work in a way where it's us approaching clubs and it's not us just being offered players, and it's us actually following our process, identifying the players that we want, to then bring them in the building. So like I say, generally it's the lads have to earn an opportunity to play. You don't just give them a shirt because you're coming from Tottenham or wherever.
Are there some clubs you've got better relationships than others, and perhaps you would feel more confident going to them?
Yeah, I'd say so. I suppose my role is to keep relationships with people and don't burn bridges, because you never know when you're gonna be asking those types of players. So I think one thing we're really proud of is that we really look after the loan players. And I think the boys that have come here, I mean, you've seen them over the years, a lot of them end up coming back, and that's because we look after them and we do right by them, and the clubs know that. So that's a huge part of it, and making sure that you're effectively it's a human being at the end of the day, and somebody that maybe coming traveling 200-300 miles from their home to come and play for you and up sticks their lives in 24 hours. So you have to make sure you do right by them, and
Sarge alluded to the Oxford United way. Who decides what is the Oxford United way? And therefore, we talked about recruiting players to play in the Oxford United way. Presumably that applies to the manager as well.
I think a lot of it comes from the very top. So from the shareholders and the ownership, what do you want your football club to look like? Obviously, we've got a historical way of playing. I think this football club is, it's high energy, fast-paced, entertaining football, right? We want to be a team that, we have possession, but we have possession with a purpose. We don't just keep the ball for the sake of it. We actually want to, hurt teams and get people on the edge of their seats. So it's a kind of a combination of things. Obviously, when we recruit head coaches, they have to fit a certain way. We're not going to go from here to suddenly here, because we've recruited a squad to play here, then you're going to need 25 new players. So Yeah, it's a combination of things, but ultimately it comes from great top.
We'll give you a little break for a second and Tim, you've been quiet for a while. Let's come back to you for a second. Obviously, Championship football, we've seen stats thus far and probably again for Burnley the weekend. The old questions come back again to that fourth stand. So when you go back and build that?
The fourth stand will, I would have loved to have done the fourth stand. And Grant Ferguson would have loved to have done the fourth stand. Everybody in the club would actually have loved to have done the fourth stand. But we would have lost money. And that is the absolute reality of it. You know, I genuinely, if we could have done it and even broken even, we would have done it. It would have absolutely killed poor Jim Goddard, who was already trying to fix the training ground and put new floodlights in and everything else. But it was just going to lose us too much money. And we felt as a group and as a board that the money that we would lose would be better spent somewhere else. And I think that's just the harsh reality. It's just pure economics. I mean, obviously, when we eventually move into our new stadium, it'll be a bowl, so there won't be a fourth stand, there'll just be a nice continuous bowl around it. And you know, I'm sure that there may be questions later on the new stadium, and unfortunately, there's not a lot to say, other than we are spending an awful lot of time looking at the questions that are coming back from planning, back and forth with planning. Still expecting the decision at some point in February. There's a lot of work going on behind the scenes in terms of what the look and feel of the stadium is going to be. So no time immediately segue from fourth stand into new stand there, Nathan. But yeah, let's go back to the fourth stand. Genuinely, we'd love to have done it, but we just could not make it work.
I actually think it's, and there's a lot of credit needs to go to fans that pay the money to come to the games, but I actually think this is acting as a slight advantage to us at the moment. We're playing teams that generally we haven't played before, players that may have signed for teams to come and play in the Premier League, play at Old Trafford, and they won't have experienced that before. And the atmosphere of the home games we've had so far, it's been immense, and the results kind of back that up as well. That won every game at home so far, and hopefully that can continue for a few more weeks. But I think it is actually home advantage is big for us. It's going to be huge for us this year. Yeah. We've seen the challenges away from home. It's so brutal. The more people we can get in the stadium, the more noise we can make, the more kind of fortress that we can make this kind of development. That's going to be massive for the group this season.
Tim, you mentioned it would be a loss to have the fourth stand. What about the championship income? How does that go to cover the increased expenditure you have in terms of budget and staffing, stadium development, etc.? And do we expect to see a loss again this season? The question you've had sent.
Yeah, we absolutely will expect to see a loss this season. There is absolutely no way that we could build a competitive squad to compete as we have done in the Championship and not have still the injections of capital that we get from our shareholders. That is just the reality of football. It's the reality of most football clubs in the Champ and below, and frankly, most Premier League football clubs as well. Yes, it is absolutely true, and I've talked about it very publicly after the final at Wembley that that was a 10 million quid game. It absolutely was a 10 million quid game, and a lot of that goes on infrastructure and players. So, and that's what it takes to be competitive. The chairman of Bolton Wanderers was very public prior to the Wembley final, saying that that game would probably cost them 20 to 25 million quid. What that meant was that they were going to have to upskill and buy new players in order to maintain championship status. Frankly, it's not cost them 20 to 25 million quid, I'm pleased to say. Not pleased to say, I'm sure we would like to give 10 million. But yeah, will we show a loss for the FY24 season? Absolutely. Because not only did we run at the normal loss we do, but obviously from promotion, we have bonuses to pay for players and coaches, which are already built into their contracts. And believe me, the Wembley final cost us money. We didn't make money from playing Wembley on the 18th of May, except for the benefit this year. And it will be the same next year. We are reliant, thankfully, on a very, very supportive shareholder who loves the game, loves Oxford United, and exceptionally supportive both for the stadium and for the on-pitch ones as well.
So to answer this question, how often do you get together with the shareholders as a senior team as well, people being based in these as well? How are those meetings going forward? Regular?
That's all right. I was in Charter in June of this year. It was actually the first time I've been over there since I joined the club to meet with Eric and Annie. How often do we get together? I think Ed and I were whisked to Kensington, Knightsbridge, wasn't it, on the 20th of May at 8:30 in the morning for a meeting with Mr. Tohier. During the transfer window, we must have had 7 or 8 calls with the owners. Ed speaks to Grant every day, Stevie speaks to Grant those days, I speak to Grant every day. Grant is that conduit generally between how we run the club here on the ground and the board, and Grant is an exceptionally supportive and effective conduit to that. But there is absolutely no doubt that in particular Eric Tohier is exceptionally involved in what we do and how we do it. And I'm pleased to say that this is not a silent owner. He's very, very involved in what we do. And so if a month goes by and we've not had contact with Eric, then that's unusual. And if a day goes by and we've not spoken to Grant, that's almost unheard of.
Well, the world's changing very easy. That's a very small place in the world to make a contact. But is it difficult in the window sometimes with the time zone difference? Are you happy to make a call in the middle of the night if they could get back there and you'll do that?
Weirdly, it rarely happens actually. I mean, Grant is genuinely nocturnal. I'm sure you wouldn't mind me saying it. I think once the transfer window closed, he said, "Look, I can actually now get back to a normal sleeping pattern." So having Grant there, we can. There are times when we've had calls at 9, 10 o'clock at night, and Grant's being around. He gets he gets with the program during the transfer window. I'm not sure anything else about that.
I think it's called to me every deadline day. It's going to go to bed yet. Not quite yet. Just have another Red Bull and just stay up. Like Tim said, we've got exceptionally supportive shareholders and Grant as well that represents them. They're there for us, and like Tim says, speak to Grant most days, and he wants to know what's going on. They want to know the plan for the future. They want to know the day-to-day of how things are going and the challenges that we're facing. So, makes it support.
You've just mentioned that brilliant day where we promoted the championship. Stevie, for Ed, how difficult does that make it for the younger players at the club now to break through? Because suddenly you're talking about being a championship football, not a League One player. You've got to get into a championship side. You're bringing in better players who are ready to improve the squad externally.
I think raises the level. So the level we speak about today, the standard of training has gone through the roof from where it was last year. So the boys are getting exposure to that, which they wouldn't get ever in League One. So I think naturally that brings improvement. Of course, the challenge is great to get into a championship team like it is for any player. It's hard to get into a championship in this League One team, but like Stevie said, the big focus of the club is developing players and developing people, and that still remains in the championship in League One. I was saying the Premier League, that still remains. So, the environment and what we have in terms of the coaches and the exposure the boys get helps them get to the level, and like I said, the level of everything raises.
Young people are incredibly adaptable and resilient, and to be honest with you, the level of football, as Ed was saying, the level of football will raise that they're going to train with. So when they get called into training with the first team, which is a brilliant part of the development, we have young players training the first team pretty much every day. There's at least 1, maybe 2, 3, 4 called over because we train on the pitch behind. So it's a very easy transition to do that. And because they are so adaptable and they're always getting better, right? But a 14, 15, 16-year-old player isn't going to be at that level at 18, 19, 20. So what they're trying to do, whether it's trying to break into a League 2, a League 1, a Championship, it's not really about the level, it's about the club, it's about the strategy, it's about opportunity. You don't know what a young player is going to do until you give them that opportunity. And once they get it, some of them grab it, some get thrown in, and you think, I'm not sure how they're going to react here, and they go skyrocket. And then other ones that you think, you know what, they're ready, let's throw them in, they kind of dovetail away and don't come, because with talent and ability, unfortunately, it comes down to how much do you actually want it, how much are you going to work hard to get it, and can you handle the pressure of ultimately going out on a football pitch and playing in front of 10, 15,000 people, because it's not easy. You know, you go from playing at the training ground in front of your mum and dad and 100 people max to then actually running out at Casal in front of 11,500 people. It's quite daunting to a young person. Or they absolutely love it and they take it in their stride, and until you get that opportunity to go and do it, the level actually it doesn't really matter whether it's League One or Championship.
I think the point on loans as well, side is we speak about this a lot, about varying the challenge. So whilst these boys train, every day and train in the Oxford United way every day, a really important part of development is actually building well-rounded individuals. And how do you do that? You change the environment for them. So if they're in the same environment every single day, you're not going to get such a well-rounded person. Whereas, so look inside Waldron, who had 2-3 loans at different levels, took everything in his stride, every level, and he's doing it now, right? Like in the Championship, he takes everything in his stride. And that's a big part of it, is he's trying to build those, like I said, those well-rounded players and well-rounded people, and very challenging in order to do that.
There's a question actually from the forum on that sort of basis. You and Des have talked about good people, good characters as well. So how do you determine and establish someone's non-playing attributes before they get to the building?
It's difficult. It's probably the hardest part of recruitment and the recruitment process. A lot of it is doing your due diligence and your referencing, speaking to people that have either worked with that player, played with that player. We do that from a 360 approach as much as we can. So that might be, like I say, people that have shared a dressing room. It might be managers. It might be people in my role. It might be the kit man. It's as many, trying to get as many opinions on that player from a full-rounded perspective. And then ultimately we meet that person. You can tell a lot about a person, especially face to face. Modern world now, a lot of it's done online, but where we can meet people face to face, we get them in the training ground, you look in their eyes and you can get a feel from these people. And yeah, as I say, it's the hardest thing to quantify, and often people, that goes for all of us, right? You act differently in different environments, so it's the hardest thing to find out. But myself and the gaffer are so aligned on this that it only takes one apple to fall apart. Right? It's something we have to get right. Above everything, we have to get the right personalities in the building, especially in a year like this, more than ever.
What about a deal like Marcelino, for example, Tim, who's come in, obviously with Indonesian connections as well with the football club? I guess his background is hard, and how much of that, not forced upon the club, but how much of that is a necessary deal to do?
I don't think any. I think it's important to say that there's absolutely nothing that is sort of forced upon us. I think with Marcelino, yes, we have an opportunity to access a market that we otherwise wouldn't have. I think that brings out some quite interesting opportunities. I can ask Ed to speak about Marcelino's sort of technical ability, but this is a guy who plays for the Indonesian national team, who are a growing squad, and they've got some work to do, but the work that has been done to develop the Indonesian national team over the last few years is extraordinary. The profile that they have has increased immensely. And Marcelino has been a star player in that way. And I think what we saw, and what we saw after discussing with the owners, is the potential that this is somebody who could actually make a real go of English football. And I mean, Ed, you know a lot more about that kind of thing than I do.
Yeah, I think it's like broadening our horizons as well. Right? There's footballers all over the world. There's footballers that can play in the Championship all over the world. And part of my role is, where can you find those? Where can you find those? And go to places where maybe people haven't gone before. So Marcelino, like I say, he's an Oxford United signing. He's a player that's got considerable potential. He's got things to work on, like everybody, but he's somebody that we see that has got potential to get in our team and affect things. So, we did a lot of work on him. The same process was followed as it was for every player we signed this summer. We're looking forward to seeing him develop.
Is there a patience aspect to this? So you see a player come together and go, so he's not the first team in 2 weeks, what's wrong with him? It's when you've got to go, there's
no, exactly. He's just done 20. He's a young boy. to obviously come to a new country. It's going to take time to adapt. So it's one that maybe a bit more of a longer term one, but as I say, he's got potential to have a really good career and do some good things in the game.
The floor, Simon first, second row, your hand up there.
This is more kind of the players that don't make it. Obviously, there's a huge number of players come through the academy and very few will make it at the top level. What's in place for those players, pathway? One of the things we hear in criticism of referees is they haven't played the game. Is there, is that a pathway for players that don't make the grade or players that perhaps have to retire with injury, to alternatives that, they can't all go into coaching and managing, but what's in place for those that don't make it?
We've got through the EPPP system, we've partnered pretty much every club, every academy in the whole of England partner with the LFE, which is education. One of the biggest things for me coming into the role was about further education for the players. We put 4 boys for the first time ever who are currently doing the A-levels. So they came into the full-time programme and they are doing their A-levels alongside playing football every day. That's been a huge commitment from everybody at the football club. It's something that, with Tim and Grant and getting sign off to because we need to bring tutors in, we need to get a specialist company who get the boys through, because we don't want, it's not a token, but in fact 2 of the boys are actually doing 2 A-levels, which is on top of their education they already do, on top of the football, on top of everything else they do. The amount of hours that all 4 boys are actually spending on education is because of that. Look, we don't know where they're going to go. We don't know whether they're going to make it. I think it's less than 1% of players that come through that actually go on to have a professional career. You get some who finish playing professional football maybe even in their early 20s, and what do they have to fall back on? We put them through the UEFA C licence while they're with the football club. We offer them refereeing courses. We offer them further education. They do life skills as well, which is a big part of the audit that the academy go through to look at, life after football. What is life after football? So we've got banks come in to speak to them to talk about money. We've got so many things going on. We've actually got a slot of 2 hours every week on a Thursday afternoon that we have somebody from a different background comes in and speaks to the boys about what if you don't make it. And even getting in at 16 and going on that journey, that's a small number, because across the whole country, it's only just, the whole of England, it's only just over 600 boys get the opportunity to go into a scholarship at a football club. Now, 600 from thousands and thousands. So we've got a duty of care to the boys that don't offer the scholarships. We'll offer out probably 9 scholarships every year to under 16s to come in to the building. The ones that don't make it, we've got a duty of care to follow up and make sure that we follow their pathway, we help them in any way we possibly can. And look, I'm not going to sit here and say we do perfectly, because there's always going to be ones that slip through the net that we don't catch, but we do our best. We really do our best and put as many safeguarding things in place to make sure that because they're young people, they're really young people starting out in life, and it's our duty of care to make sure we try and give them that.
On the back row.
Thank you, also your time, my chance. So, a bit on, you mentioned them asking a phone now. Of course, this summer we saw an increase in a lot of kind of top clubs, or some clubs are now doing the bulk of their business in kind of, up to, under 16, go on 14, that kind of thing. Also, we're not at that level yet, but in terms of, the likes of, Jacob Lightbridge and Ferdinand we saw this season, Max Waldron who's had last season, are we going to see an increase in those kind of more, what you probably deem as development signings that maybe, what you mentioned, kind of play with the an under 21 squad, get that game time then, because obviously Jacob Lightbridge, when he signed, he mentioned that he was very well aware he was going to go out and learn before getting the chance of the first team. And I know you can't give specifics, but can you give us an idea of how different it is negotiating those kind of transfers with players and with regards to, when speaking with, I've got to say, for example, this weekend ballet?
Yeah, so I think to answer the first part of your question, it's been a key focus for the club for a long time, and it will continue to be. Obviously, like we said, we've spoken about the games programme that's in place for those boys at the moment, and that will continue. And you know, if we can get to Cat 2, then there's an even bigger games programme, right? So yeah, of course, it's something that will continue, and yeah, it's a big part of you know how we build the success of the club over a number of years. In terms of the negotiating, it's yeah, each deal is different, so you know there's different complexities to each one. With the boys that you know class as development signings or development players, it's very much like incentivising and how can we get you in the first team and then incentivise you to you know to do everything you can to get and keep a place in the first team. And that you know whether that's boys coming through the academy. I'm sure it won't escape anyone's attention. Ty Goodwin signed about 3 contracts in the space of about 6 months, and that's because we want to reward people when they get to a point where you know you're outperforming probably what you're earning, then you should be rewarded for that, right? So yeah, as I say, every deal's different, and yeah, the complexities are very varied.
We'll go just a second, just to follow up on that one question from Howard. Are there players who miss out on sometimes because agents or clubs are just too hard to work with?
No, I wouldn't say so. I think again, part of my role is making sure that you know you mediate that process, and yeah, of course there are some agents that are more challenging to deal with than others, but you know that's my role to make sure that we don't lose out on players for that reason. I think you know I touched on it. I think we're in a league that's so competitive now, and some of the teams are doing in League One that is you know, astronomical. £15 million in League One. We can jump to that a month ago, 2 months ago. So generally, when we lose out on players, it's because you know players choose other clubs, and they've got their reasons for doing that, and we respect that. But you know, it's very rarely easy because you know clubs too difficult to deal with, one agency.
Continuing on the theme of recruitment, we seemingly have a reputation. I'm not sure that's the right word, but for signing players who are either injured or get injured long term very shortly afterwards. I mean, obviously, Will Godwin and Tetty on loan from Sunderland, and I'm sure there's some others as well. I mean, it's a theme amongst fans. Now, is that just unlucky, or is there something lacking in our medical side that doesn't pick these potential injuries up, or you know?
The first thing, you know, we're always looking to improve, and we're constantly evaluating what we do in our process to make sure that you know we are doing the right stuff, and we are picking up these things where possible. The reality is, I think most fans probably say the same thing, that you know we've got loads of injuries. It happens in football. That you know, I've spoken about. There's spoken about the intensity of the games that these boys are now playing. You know, injuries are going to happen. It's part and parcel of the game. I think this summer, obviously, you know, we monitor it massively. So when we present to Grant and Tim about these are the players we want to sign, a big part of that is you know availability. How many injuries they've had in the last 3, 4, 5 years? What do we need to know? We then go through a really rigorous medical process over a number of days. It's not just you know. Player turns up, they have a quick look, kick the tires, and they're fine to go. It's a 2-day process. There's scans, there's all sorts. So, you know, best we can to pick up on things that might be issues, we do. But the reality is, you know, injuries happen in football. These are, as I say, really intense games, and players are going to get injured. So as we're seeing at the moment, sadly, some of our key players being out at the moment. So, yeah.
I think do we have any concerns about it by an injury player? Absolutely not. But as I said, it is part of the recruitment process for a balanced squad. You know, and it may be that you recruit a player for a particular reason that you only know is going to be really capable of playing, say, 25 games a season, but there is a particular purpose for them doing that. And look, you know, when the club acquired Josh Murphy back in 2022, I think it was probably widely regarded that he may be a little injury prone. And I think he probably was a little injury prone, but I'll take those 2 goals and won't do anything. So, you know, it is all a balance, and I think that the key thing is that the recruitment process that Ed's described is so diligent. The onboarding, for want of a better expression, of a new player is so diligent that, you know, you do the best you can. But, Jake Tete, a Stan Mills, sometimes it just happens. And it's human beings with bodies that can break, and that's just the reality of it. And we are, there's 92 clubs in the Football League, and 92 clubs will have an injury issue at any time in the season.
I think Tim's point's a real good one, especially going up the level. It's, I've spoken a lot about improving the depth of the squad, which is what we hope we've done, but another side part and a big part of that is improving that quality level and making sure we've got players that have those moments within them to be able to win games, right? It's a team effort, but equally you need players that can do some magic at times. So that's a great example. Like Tim says, you wouldn't trade those 2 goals for anything, right? So it's just about getting that balance and making sure, like I said, we don't have too many players that are really high risk, and that's the word that we use is we categorise based on risk. When we're presenting this as a high risk player, generally contracts reflect that. So if you've got a really high risk player, the chances are probably not going to be a top earner because you know that you might not see them for 45 games. And then you balance that. You've got one of those in high risk player in a certain position. You're going to need a quite low risk player to support him.
On that risk and reward sort of strategy, and I think Marcus Brown this point as well, perhaps try and pick a name out. There's a reason that Oxford United can bring a player like that to football, isn't there? Because if they were not going to get injuries from time to time, they'd be Championship players or maybe Premier League players and they wouldn't have come to Oxford in the first place. Is that?
No, exactly. And that's where, it relates back to my previous point, like getting players of quality, but like I say, there may be something, an injury problem with them, and that's ultimately, like I say, the reason that we're able to sign them. Otherwise, had Josh Murphy not got injured while he was at Cardiff, he would not have been signed for Oxford United. There's no chance. So it's like I say, it's about managing how many of those types of players you have and making sure that when you're building a squad that you've got sufficient cover.
Let me just wrap up the injury front, we'll come back to the question for that, because there's a question from the forum that came. There's quite a lot, I'll paraphrase, about why we aren't given information on injured players. And there's lots out currently now. Des actually addressed this on the double in terms of the current ones. If you missed it, I'll just recap that. The head is 4 weeks away. Matt Phillips awaiting a time frame on that. Brannigan 6 weeks. McKeithron maybe the weekend, not next Tuesday at Luton. Goodwin a couple of weeks, and then until January. But the question was about, why aren't we giving these updates on a regular basis? Is that what you want to address it?
Yeah, I think, if we update everybody every time we have a knock-in training that we all speak about, so, there's lots of things that, players pick up on a day-to-day basis. Some are serious, some are frankly not serious. So, there's a lot to keep people updated on. I think the other element to this as well is the human element. So naturally, if you're Cameron Brannigan and you're out for a lengthy period of time, you're going to be disappointed. You've got to get your own head around that. So it's not right for us to, the moment we get a diagnosis of Cameron Brannigan to then come out and tell everybody when Cameron maybe hasn't had the opportunity to digest that himself. So it's just about managing that really. Like you say, the gaffer, it's pretty open, right? When he gets asked questions, he doesn't skirt around it. He tells you how long we expect. And the other thing is that is often variable. Players have setbacks. They're ahead of schedule sometimes, so it is actually difficult to always get it bang on how long the players will be out.
I think it's really important to say, just to touch on what Ed says, that these are human beings with, and I mean this not in a trite way, I mean this in a real way, they're human beings with feelings and with their own internal issues to deal with. And frankly, saying the player's injured and they might be out for a while is enough for me. I think it's too much to go into too much detail about somebody's actual medical history. And so I think, I'm not saying we don't give information, but for me, genuinely on that, I would adopt a less is more position.
It's their livelihoods as well, right? Being injured affects you've seen it with Marcus Brown this summer, as far as I'm aware, he still doesn't have a club, and that's a player that's so much talent, but ultimately, the injuries will be the problem why he hasn't got a club right now. So, like Tim says, that they are human beings, and it's important that we take that into account.
Let's go to the back. Thank you, waiting, sir. Thank you.
Thank you very much. First of all, I'd just like to say thank you very much to all of you for everything you've done for our football club I've got a question for each of you, really. Thank you to Peter, Oxford and USP. I just think, yeah, we all came together, but I think we've always been together, and I think it's a great club. But my question to each of you is, what was it really like on that day, on the 18th of May, when you stood there and there was a few minutes left to play, and you knew that was probably the second best performance that has ever been seen at Wembley, the other one being in 86. But what was it really like, Ed? You recruited these players, you know them personally. Tim, you know them. Stevie, they've come through the ranks, haven't they? Tyler Goodwin, Josh Murphy. What was it really like for you, stood there, watching that?
I'll be honest, I still thought I'm going to score it up until about the 98th minute. I went out for a goal kick past the added time, and Faz said to me, I think we've done it, so I think we've done it. So it was quite emotional, I'll be honest, it was emotional, and you know, it's such a consuming environment that we work in, and you give everything you've got to try and help us by being successful. So to have that day was emotional, I can't lie, it was an emotional feeling. I think for me, my overriding feeling, you know, as we got into the evening and celebrated, it was just immense pride for the players. But to see that group of, you know, a lot of them, you know, we've all known a long time, like you said, they've come through the ranks, you've seen them grow as people, let alone players. For them to have that moment and in front of everybody, in front of 75,000 people, whatever it was, and you know, national TV, especially against a team that, let's be fair, humiliated us 3 months previous. It was immense pride for the players and for everybody involved.
Just before you take up with Tim, at what point of the championship at the pocket, you must be thinking, we've got two lists, we've got these funny, actually, we've got championship. What did you get to look?
Obviously, we had two plans for a long time. Like you always, it's something we got used to. You know, generally speaking, we've been punching around those playoffs, and it's something that, you know, becomes part of the role that you know you're going to prepare for two leagues. I have to say, the season before we were prepared for 2 leagues. It's quite funny. I woke up on Sunday morning to a message from Eric, basically saying, "Congratulations, send us the championship plan." So luckily I had it, because I probably wasn't in a fit state to create one on that day. So luckily I had it. But yeah, no, it is. And then it's straight into it. Like Tim says, we're in a meeting Monday morning, and it was right. This is what we're doing. Let's get on with it, and yeah, that's what we did.
How far are you with your Premier League?
No, it's gone. You know, part of my role, you're constantly planning, you're constantly working to, 1, 2, 3 windows ahead, and assessing, your own squad, the market, opportunities. It's all about planning. I think you can't go into a window without a plan, because it just becomes a disaster. So it's all about planning. Hopefully, in a few more years we can look at that and start a serious Premier League plan.
Yeah. Tim, back to Wembley.
Yeah, it was just an extraordinary day. And it's a great question, because, we looked out there and saw 35,000 Oxford United fans just making us feel exceptionally proud. But from a personal, I'm actually literally, I'm goose pimples now. It was the most incredible day. My wife said to me about 2 minutes before full time, she looked at me and she said, "We've done it." I said, "We've got 2 minutes left." And there's a guy to my left, this is going to Scotland, but he said, "It's all right, this guy can play for 9 minutes and he's going to score." But it was just that sense of an immense achievement. And one that we genuinely, I think, back to March and back to that pretty horrible day in Bolton back in February, I don't think any of us were really expecting. And then I think the season just developed this incredible momentum, from the Exeter game on the 28th to the Peterborough games where, that second leg we defended for our lives. I mean, that was incredible. So then Wembley, and I think people have said to me, "Did you think we were going to win?" And I think my answer has always been, I didn't think we were going to win, but I just could not see us losing. And that's not thinking we're going to win. It was just that I hadn't played out the prospect of losing in my mind. Because I just thought, you just don't know. And it was incredible. I've got this wonderful video on my phone that Gemma Sims, who was a few rows behind us, took. And it's this wonderful video because I think it's got you on it, Stevie. It's got this beautiful image of Ed just
taking a moment, and it's quite an emotional thing to see, that you've got Eddie just puts his head down. It's almost like, I just need to think about this for about 5 seconds, and then I can stand up and enjoy it. With Faz's arm.
Thinking about the size of the task ahead.
There's videos of me kind of hugging my wife and hugging Grant and the shadows. I could be in football for another 20 years, and I've been in football for 15 years. That's the best day I've ever had in football, and I suspect the best day I ever will have. Nothing will be able to repeat that day. Extraordinary.
Something that sticks when Waldron beat us by Faz, and he's full of wisdom and he's probably the perfect man for that situation. We were speaking to him in the car on the way home, and he said, "We'll beat those girls." That was 2 hours, and I thought, no, we'll beat those girls, and he was right. And I think strength of character of the group to be able to come back from that, and then deliver what they did, and yeah, the Peterborough second leg for me is the one that stands out, where it was incredible. Like, bodies on the line for 90 minutes, as Jamie said right at the end. It was, it felt like, this actually sorry, Steve.
No, I mean, I think for me, I get to take a different stance to it with these guys working in the men's team sort of day on day. When being in the playoff games as well, and being in Wembley for me, my affiliation not only with Oxford United, but Oxfordshire over since 2009. I came down on loan as a 19, goodness. And I grew up a lot, been down at Oxford United in those times, and moved to the area, got married in the area, had the first child in the area. This place means a lot to me, and being able to see the 2010 Wembley be part of that team that went from the National League into League Two, and then to be back at the football club years later that goes from League One into the Championship. It's deeper. It's a real proud achievement. You see the likes of Sam Long, who, I mean, the reasons I know Sam Long is because I was training with under 18s under Chris Wilder, but that's a different story. But seeing Longy go out onto there and having known him for such a long time and knowing again he's from the area, Tyler Goodrum playing coming through the academy and some of the other boys, and just amazed for everybody. I was one of you on the day, to be honest. I was just there to enjoy it and hope that Oxford United, my team Oxford United, that I've been following for such a long time, was lucky to be part of, was going to make history really in 25 years since it's been the second tier. And yeah, just the overriding feeling that everybody in that stadium and everybody in Oxfordshire had that day, I think will live with everybody for a long, long time.
Okay, gentlemen, third round, thank you.
Hello. Quick question. This is a bit left field, so bear with me. Going back many years, the gentleman that was sat to your right, Rosie, would tell you about this player. We used to have a guy called Kerry Evans, who at the time was actually a student at Oxford University. He was a New Zealand international, ended up playing for us. So my question is, do we have a relationship with Oxford University in terms of, it's probably well known, they've got, good facilities. Would there be a prospect of setting up even like a behind doors pre-season friendly to assess whether there's someone there? You might actually have a model where, a person has said to themselves, let me get my degree and then I'll try and see if I can break into football, even if that will via a non-league route. You might find a prospect. And in terms of, like even resources, they might have training facilities that you could use, like in the event of the flooding you described.
I think, as an overriding point, it's actually an exceptionally good question with a very, very difficult and long answer, which I'll try and shorten. I would love it if we had a great relationship with the university, but I would also love it if we had a great relationship with Brooks as well, because they're just notoriously difficult to really get a foothold in. And I think that with the University of Oxford, the difficulty you have, there's a couple of things. Most of their sports are done sitting down, so it's a little bit more difficult to really tap into the footballing side of things, all egg-shaped balls and things like that. But the difficulties that they've just basically loaded individual colleges, and I don't mean to go into that because it's everybody knows this, but what that means is the actual entity that is the University of Oxford is kind of, I wouldn't say it's small, but it's not, it doesn't fulfill that kind of talent and education. That's what the colleges do. And look, I'm probably talking absolute nonsense because I was at Manchester Metropolitan University, so I have no experience of this place. But that's the feeling that we get, is it's a little impenetrable. And if anybody's out there listening to this and wants to make contact with me, please do, because I also think in terms of your point on the training facilities and flooding, I think again we've got a really brilliant training facility where we've had to make the best of it, because the reality is that the university playing fields are exactly that, I'm afraid. They are university playing fields, and they're not, well, again, I'll probably get shot down for saying this, but I would imagine not up to the standard that we would need for a professional football club at the level that we play at. So, brilliant question, but the answer is unfortunately a little more complex.
We've got 3G pitch, but they play hockey on. So they've got things like Itchy Road.
Yeah.
I take your point, but not all of it is sort of like school field level.
No, again, absolutely. I'm probably kind of sort of like embellishing for kind of dramatic effect, but I think that's where we're at.
I think, Mickey Lou used to take us down to University Parks and train. We were training on best cricket ground at the time, so anything was not great. But I think we are where the difference in pitches are. There's hundreds of thousands of pounds spent on that pitch at the training ground. Even the academy pitches that sit in the back of the two main first team pitches aren't the same quality of the two main first team pitches. So when there's the first team move up onto the academy pitches are absolutely superb. But when the first team move up to them, there is a difference, because the amount of maintenance that gets put into those pitches on a daily basis is absolutely, it's incredible. It really is. Like the money spent on the pitches and the training ground are outstanding. And my wife worked at the University of Oxford for nearly 9 years, so I can echo exactly what Tim was saying about the different entities. You could speak to, I can speak to a lot of people that might be quite high up in Oxford, the University of Oxford, but they've got nothing to do with the sports, they've got nothing to do with that, they've got nothing to do with it. So actually being able to find a chain of command to build those connections, you can build a connection with one part, but that one part is all over the city, so it's a really tough one to crack. Like I said, with 3G pitches, we've got an outstanding relationship with Oxford City. The youth academy train there. The first team go down and train there when the pitches are frozen. If Tim gives me £500,000, we'll build one of their own on the training ground. Yeah, I think that we would love to, but it's so complicated.
We have used the athletics track, as an example in the past pre-season when we wanted to do testing with the boys, and maybe it's better to do it on a hard surface than grass. And we have used it. And on your point with kind of scouting players, players come from anywhere, right? It's one of my first points. That, of course, if we get wind of it, if it's something that we go and watch a game and there's a player there that we think is good enough to come and play in our first team or our academy, then 100%, there's no reason why we wouldn't take lessons.
There's always more we can do, and I think if my point of being kind of half joking, is that if anybody's listening to this from the University of Oxford and wants to get in touch with us, we do reach out. We try and reach out through various student groups, but it's not as easy as I would have liked it to have been.
That's a great question, thank you. We're in about the last 10 minutes. We've got a lot of questions to send
get to. There's two or three to pick up very quickly, then Grace will come to you in closing questions for the end. Coming for you very quickly, Ed, the deal of doing the transfer deal, the actual etiquette behind it, is there a typical starting point? Is there a valuation that you'll know, for example? Do you go in off the cuff and say, like, it's not buying a house in many ways?
Nah, so it's, in terms of valuations, it's understanding the market, so it's understanding, players of a similar age, similar level of ability, and similarly, what they've gone for in the past. There's so many variables to that, so, a player with 3 years left in his contract is going to be valued more than one that's got 1 year left in his contract. So there's so many variables to it. I think the starting point for pretty much every deal is speaking with the player's agent, and that's generally where you get most of the information. And then, like I say, once you develop things, it may be, I used to read an example, I was in pretty constant communication with Craig Gardner throughout the summer. We knew we had a valuation of the player, they had a valuation of the player. Those two things were apart for quite a long period. And then, as I say, when we got towards the end, their valuation dropped and got closer to us. So it's something long-winded. Sometimes clubs set the price, so they say, look, we've got this player, he's got 1 year left, he's not going to sign a contract, we want X million pound for him, or we want X hundreds of thousand pounds for him. So you know how much it is, and you go into it with your eyes wide open. The ones where you are almost, we don't know what the club's valuation is, and if someone called me tomorrow and said, how much do you want for Tyler Goodwin? I mean, firstly, I'll put the phone down and say, I wouldn't get the price, and you have to come to me with an offer, and I'll take that to the chairman. But so often it works that way. So then it's it's using your experience and using your knowledge of the market to find, a player of that age left Peterborough, for example, last year for this much money. So that's a good gauge. But generally, every club's different, right? And we all value players differently.
And we're on data. We've talked about getting the right person in terms of their personality. But I spent a few hours with the former Oxford manager a few years ago, and he was showing me some of the presentations putting through your work, and the charts and the data was unbelievable. How it all comes together, overlapping circles, this player does that. It was mind-blowing. How much of that is based on what you look at?
Yeah, so we use data every step. I'm very fortunate that Tim and Grant, shareholders, have backed us in that sense. Data is expensive. It's very expensive. To get coverage and the quality of data that you need to make really informed decisions, it's expensive. So you need that backing. We've got that. We have a range of leagues across Europe that will be classed as our target leagues that we think are realistic for us. There's probably no point in having Man City's data, because realistically we're not going to be signing the players from Man City's first team. So it's very targeted. We use it at every step. So we use it in the identification phase, especially for leagues that we may not have as much knowledge as we do the Championship and League One. We use it when we're comparing kind of large groups of players in what we call our long list phase, which 300-400 players are on that list at any one time. It's constantly changing and constantly updating. So we use that to kind of highlight players that in their position group that are high performing. And then lastly, we use it in the decision-making phase. So when you've got 3 or 4 different targets, how can you differentiate between them? We use it in that stage. The one thing I would say is for me, data is really important, and you have to use it right. So a lot of clubs, maybe not so much now, but a few years ago, probably were misusing it. So it has to be relevant for you. And all of our data kind of platforms and processes that we build in-house are all bespoke around what an Oxford United centre forward looks like. What does an Oxford United right back look like? What does an Oxford United centre back look like? Because that's going to be different to what a Rotherham centre back looks like, or a Rotherham centre forward looks like. So it has to be applied. And then lastly, for me, still the eye and the feel of what you see and what you kind of feeling you get from players when you're watching them over a long period of time is still king. That's still what we go to and what we refer back to. The best ones, and generally when the transfers that are the most successful are when both those two things align, and you've got players with outstanding data, but also his reports are outstanding, and you've met him, and the personality seems perfect for the group. that's when you get a really good feel. But we would never sign a player just because stats won't tell us that his day is good. The process heavily involves watching these players over a number of countless games over another, ideally a long period of time.
Any regrets from the summer, or have you learned from doing them?
I think you're always learning. I think every day, right? You're always learning, and there's always things you can improve on. In terms of regrets, no, I think we're pretty happy with it. It's still the season's in its infancy, so it's difficult to really assess the quality of the group. But we know the size of the challenge. We feel like we've given ourselves a chance, a fighting chance to actually establish ourselves at the level. In terms of improvements, I think again, if we can establish ourselves, like I touched on before, European markets are a lot more open, and I know we get into it this summer, but can we really be really proactive in exploring leagues that maybe other teams aren't actually fishing in yet? And we did that really well a few years ago with Ireland. I think Northern Ireland, South Ireland were one of probably 2 or 3 teams that we were the ones that were taking players, and we had good success on that overall. So yeah, it's how can we expand our process and like I say, football's constantly evolving. You need to stay up to date with what's going on around you, otherwise you fall behind. So we're constantly evaluating, constantly improving.
Tim, quick question from Matt, who says, from Martin, how do we see the connection between the board, the fans, the players, the staff, and how do we strengthen that? I think it goes back to the previous forum anyway, you were talking that they were about all coming together.
Yeah, I think it's always a difficult balance, and we will probably never get it absolutely right. I think the important thing is to make sure that we continue to engage and do these kind of events, continue to speak with Janine and her team, continue to speak with Paul and his team. I think there's a danger, I've said this and slightly jokingly, but kind of seriously, that nobody wants to hear me droning on for hours on end every week. I think we tend to have a view that when there's something to say, we will say it. Sometimes when we feel it's time to say something, the time has gone past when the fans wanted to say something. So that's actually a fine balance. And I think we've got a brilliant head of comms sitting over there, Ryan, who kind of does a lot of temperature checks and those kind of things to make sure we are getting it right. And I think, I'm sure you will have probably seen the level of kind of interaction, communication since Ryan came on board has been a lot more structured, and I think has been considerably better. But continue to do these, but break these out to make sure that there are other people in the club. There are a lot of other people in the club who are generally want to listen to far more than me. And I think it's great that we've had this evening to have Ed and Stevie here, because that gives you insights that I certainly can't give and Grant can't give. And so I think it's important that we continue to do this, but vary the interactions. But we always listen, and I keep saying that's easy to say, it's sometimes very difficult to do. And we just make sure that we communicate when it's the right thing. The key for me is to make sure that if it's regular, even if it's infrequent, that it's regular, it's consistent, and it's predictable. So that if we say we're going to come and speak to you or talk to you, or you want to talk to us in 3 months' time, we damn well sit down and do just that. And that's what this chap here, Brian, is there to help us out with. But I think I said this when we had the fans forum in March. I genuinely enjoyed it. I've enjoyed this evening equally. I think it's brilliant to do these events, because this football club is all about connection, it's all about interaction, and it's all about listening to you guys and thanking you guys for the support you always give us. It's brilliant.
Well, they come and ask you questions of the evening. Grace, been waiting patient, thank you.
Yeah, I was just going to say to Ed, you said about you have 2 plans if something had to change, if we went up or went down. But with the manager change, how did you deal with that? Because Des will have a different plan. I know you'll have a concrete plan in the club, but Des might want to change that plan compared to our old manager. How did you guys deal with that?
Yeah, of course. I mean, part of that starts when we recruited Des, right? Like, we knew he'd been on a similar pathway to Liam, similar education to Liam. Of course, the style of play is different. It's not identical. No two managers have identical styles of play. So, we knew we weren't going to be miles away. It's not like we've gone from, as I say, a manager that wants to build and play out to a manager that just wants to lump into a big 6 or 5 centre forward. We knew that that wasn't going to be the case. I think in terms of planning, it was me and Des had to get to know each other pretty quickly and work really closely. He joined in November. We knew the window was only a month away. We had significant injuries at that point, so we knew we were going to have to strengthen and in order to kind of sustain ourselves around the playoffs. So spent a lot of time getting to know each other, getting to know kind of the intricacies of Des's playing model and how he wants to play. But as I say, it's not too far away from. That's why he's here, right? Because his game model is similar and related to the Oxford United game model, and what the shareholders, what Grant, what we perceive is the way to play football.
Yeah, back row, thank you.
So just in terms of Ed, looking forward to the next transfer window. Obviously, I think you might have just said that we're looking to all of our loan spots with you. We've got a £25 spot for the first 6 months locked in. We've got 2 loan spots left. I presume your conversations have already begun in terms of potential targets for those loans. Have you been surprised that kind of maybe more willing to speak to us given how the start of the season has been? And Stevie, also in terms of if you've been speaking to kind of parents more willing to kind of consider their child coming to Oxford based on how the first team's getting on and various kind of things like that.
Yeah, I mean, firstly, for January, I hope for my sake and my blood pressure it's not as busy as the summer, because that can be pretty intense for a month. But as I said, the planning's already in place. That plan might change. There's no getting away from it. We have 3 injuries in the same position, and that might be an area we need to recruit that we didn't think we needed to. But during the process, we're not. As we approach January, it's not like we're just looking at one position and that's the only position we're looking across the pitch. So we are ready, if things change. And the example, quite a live example, was Stan getting injured at the start of January. We already agreed with Everton and we weren't going to call him. We were really happy with Stan, really excited actually to see how he was going to be first loan. Generally, you see, they find their feet and then they really kick on the second half of the season. So, in getting into an FA Cup game, you have to react and then that changes the plan. So it's it's already in place, but it's flexible as well, and knowing that you might need to flex and change. In terms of the loans, we made a conscious effort this summer. Personally, I think as a club, at times we've been overrun loans, and the problem with that is you're always in transition. Because if you've got 5 of your 11 on loan and they're not going to be here next year, you're replacing in essence half your team. So we made a real conscious decision that, of course, we knew we were going to take 2 or 3 as we did 3, but we wanted to try and get as many permanent players, ideally of an age where they've still got development in them, so they can grow with us as we grow as a club. So, am I surprised that the clubs, more clubs are speaking to us? No, because I think, naturally going up a level, you get the opportunity to sign better players. Of course, it goes without saying, but I think from the outside, and people see this rightly so as a well-run club that, as I said before, looks after players right, and does right by people, and that's something that we'll work hard to maintain and hopefully improve.
Last question, who better? Sarge, floor is yours.
I'm hoping it's going to be a short answer and a positive one. Our players have valuations that if someone comes in sniffing, that triggers. I hope their prices have gone up considerably.
Yes. The good thing with certain clubs, that there's pressure to sell players. You have to sell players in order for the club to survive and run. I think one of the real positives with us is we're not under pressure to sell players. That there might be a time when X player is effectively is at a level that has outgrown us in some senses, and I mean that respectfully, and it's right for the club, it's right for the player, it's right for everybody to go, okay, right, we're getting a real good amount of money for that player, like I say, a high valuation of that player, which then allows us to reinvest into the squad and and make us better in the longer term than just holding on for this player for another 6 months. So, of course, there's so many complexities to that, contract length, etc. Sometimes, you know, clubs have power with whether you sell the player or whether you don't. Sometimes players have power in it, and it's just managing that kind of situation, making sure. You know, we had a big meeting a month ago now where we spoke about retention, and it wasn't retention for this summer; it was retention for the summer after and the summer after that. Where you know, what players do we need to be aware of that, you know, they're going into next summer of the year left may attract interest, because then ultimately players have the power at the end of the year left.
Is the summer manager, by the way, Tim? Is that well tied down? Is that all sorted all right?
3-year contract, absolutely.
Perfect. Thank you all for joining us tonight. Thank you for watching on YouTube. If we didn't get to your question, apologies. We covered most of the major aspects tonight. But Steve, thank you for your time. Tim and Ed, thank you to the supporters panel and to Xbox as well. And it is a very wet night, so we wish you a very safe journey home. Thanks so much.
Just one more thing. I actually noticed this was the collection for the Joe Beachy Foundation. 2 things there. This is not an issue that goes away. As you know, as we noticed at the game, we sadly lost another supporter last week, age 24. And the mental health of the young men is never going to not be an issue. You know, I'm the father of a 21-year-old and a 23-year-old boys, and it's something that we all think about. So please, if you dig deep as much as you can for that collection, and whatever we collect from there, the football match as well. So if you can, that will be really appreciated by such an important cause and such a magnificent player.